This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming to the Social Scholar. Today we've got Martin who's going to talk to you about visualisation, data and podcasting and so we've got quite a mix of different kind of social activities and stuff like that to be involved in. I'm just going to hand this register around to begin with and just sign that so that we've sort of got an idea of how many people are coming in, who's coming in, so we just get some idea. That'd be great. Martin, will introduce a bit more about himself and go from there.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I'm going to be talking today a little bit about the work I do, and I wasn't quite sure what people would be interested in, so I tended to focus a bit more on the research work that I'm doing. And there is some sort of product engagement stuff I could talk about. I touched on that a little bit, but I could talk around that a bit more if people want me to. So hopefully, if I haven't massively restricted my slides, this should take a bit. I'll talk about 30 or 40 minutes and then give plenty of time for discussion and questions and people listening, which is brilliant. So, if you came, I did do a talk as part of Being Human in November here. Very high floor, I can't remember which one. So if you came to that, there'll be a tiny bit of overlap, but mostly the stuff hopefully you'll be seeing is fairly distinct. So it's a little bit more focused, as I say, towards research. Okay, so this is me. I'm on Austwick. I call myself. I don't really call myself this anymore, but I've been calling myself this for quite a long time, saying that I'm a social physicist. The reason I did that is because of my sort of background. I did a physics undergraduate degree. My PhD is in physics. And following on from that PhD, I did some work as a medical physicist. And I joined CASA, which is the place I work. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. It's nearly 6 years now. And since 2011 I've been a lecturer, and I currently run a course, a small MRS course, which is called Spatial Data Science and Visualisation. So there is a way to learn about this stuff if you're interested, or have students who want to do master's work, please point them towards me. I'm always very happy to help chat to them. This is the sort of stuff I do. The sort of work I'm going to talk about. Data visualisation is a big part of it. That's me with when I'm slightly younger with the data visualisation and looking in the background. I would say I do some work on digital humanities, although that's not my main research focus all the time. Networks, social networks. I've done a fair bit of work on cycling as a sort of substantive area. I work with people who look at workplace analysis and spatial cognition. And I'm currently involved in projects on the sharing economy and sort of history of the built environment, and those are ones I will talk about a bit. The public engagement is a huge part of my professional practice. Although that's not what I'm focusing on today, I'm happy to discuss that if people would like to. Data visualisation being part of that, but also podcasting, I will talk about that a little bit. Social media, blogging, workshops, talks, videos, music, community engagement, knowledge transfer partnerships, and all kinds of fun stuff, which I'm very happy to talk about, but I don't have slides on, but I can wave my arms around and discuss it if people like to. So the place I work at is called CASA. It's the Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis. It's based in the Barnet in UCL, so built environment faculty. And there's a sort of small number of teaching staff, about six lecturers, 2 teaching fellows, and 3 profs, and then sort of just over a dozen RAs, a couple of dozen PhD students, and a cohort of about 40 students each year. And the work we do is interdisciplinary, it's around cities, data and technology, and as I said, it also connects to things like digital humanities in some cases, and museums in some cases too. There's a variety of people that work here. I'm a physicist. There are mathematicians, there are computer scientists, there are architects, there are planners, there are geographers, there are people who do English PhDs, there are people who study psychology. It's a very diverse group of people. The thing that knits us together is this sort of quantitative approaches, technological approaches to these areas. And I think we're very outward-looking, we're quite an applied department, and we're thinking about ways that what we do impacts the world, communities, society, etc. Or just does create some interesting insights, I guess. So today, I'm going to talk about projects around data and visualization. I'll talk about a bit about, this actually isn't in the order that I'm going to discuss it, but I will talk about mapping communities of practice, which I think originally was what I said I'll talk about today. That will be one component of the talk. I'll talk about cities and data, specifically cycling, which is something I've done some research on. Work with the Survey of London, I'll tell you a bit about that, in Oxford Street. Work on something called a pixel stick, which is just a visualization engagement tool that I've been experimenting with. And then some early comments on projects I'm doing with the Survey of London in Whitechapel. And then, I don't know if this is of interest, but I can talk very briefly about tools for visualization. I'll just pop some things up there, and then I'll talk a little bit about podcasting. That's slightly separate, I did want to bring that in as well. Okay, so just to motivate some of the work that I do, there's this sort of model of this thing called smart cities. Smart cities are sort of technologically inclined cities that have sensors everywhere. We're dragging all the sensing data, and the question is, what do we do with all of this data that we've got about cities? Do we funnel it all up to a big red button in the mayor's office that you can press and hence have some control over this city, or do we think about ways to funnel that down to individuals, communities, and groups? How do we do that in a way that doesn't just say what people need is more data, because that's an approach that's been tried before with other sorts of knowledge, and it's not really considered to be a very effective way of empowering people or engaging people, let's say. So that's the sort of context that I'm thinking in, and visualization is one way to take generic data and start to make it specific. Raw data, as it were, data collected from sensors can be quite complex. May be difficult to interpret and understand. So visualizing is one way to give people access and insight into it, and it helps us as researchers, it helps people running the services, but almost coincidentally, it also works for wider groups of people. So here's an example of something that's done by a student, 3D visualization, which was looking at a sample of Oyster card data and tracking people's routes through the system. And what's interesting about this is they actually, this is a student sort of small group project where they looked at Freedom Pass users, and so they could see how mobility impaired users were using the system. And this, I think, is a very effective visualization. It's not something that's meant to give insight, it's meant to give you sort of a sense of that the data was there and start to get excited about it or get engaged with it in a way that a table or a graph probably wouldn't do. But behind this, there was a lot of GIS work and analysis that they did to try and understand these movement patterns. Here's another example of a sort of something targeted at a specific group. This is a dashboard being built by David Culcanon, who is working with Ed Manley and CASA and the Africa Centre to look at HIV trials in a part of South Africa. So this is geared towards this centre, sort of this research centre, taking this dashboard technology, which is a kind of very well-worn trope from like business intelligence and that kind of thing, increasing its crossover to cities, and then the question is, can you apply it to other specific situations and use a sort of visualization technology, but for business intelligence into other more diverse and interesting applications. I'm going to work through a lot of these examples, so I'm happy to talk about them a bit more if I can. So this is a piece of work which is done with this on a knowledge transfer partnership with Petros, who's sort of the main researcher on this. And this is an organisation that looks at the way that companies use space, and for example, there might be to pick a sort of cartoonish example, you're a creative industry and you want to make sure that your people are talking to each other. You don't want them sort of sitting at their desks. So how do you organise the space in a way that encourages serendipity and interaction? So that's a piece of work that you can do, so looking at the spatial footprint of the building, starting to say where are the spaces which are visible from multiple locations, and combine that with some observational data which tells you where people are actually chatting. So in this example, you've got a sort of two-dimensional colour scheme. You've got something which gets more yellow when there's a lot of interaction happening, and it gets more blue when things are more, what's called integrated. In other words, a location is visible from all over the place. And then we think of something, so if something has both of those characteristics, if it's very, very visible and it has a high interaction, then it becomes these white blobs. So that would be like it. These are places where there's sort of serendipitous, we think that's a place where serendipitous interaction can happen because you can see it all over and you might go and sort of bump into people or walk into people and have a chat. Where there's locations up here which are very, very yellow, meaning a lot of interaction happens, but there's not a great deal of integration, they're not very visible, and there's a sort of functionally defined spaces, they're meeting rooms essentially. So we're not so interested in that, we're not interested in saying we built a meeting room, meetings happen there. That's not very surprising, but what is interesting is can we encourage a sort of coincidental and chance encounters that might lead to knowledge sharing. Okay, so I'm going to jump into some of the work that I've done around cycling. For me, cycling is a really interesting topic in cities because it cuts across lots of different issues around sort of safety and active transport and fitness and green cities, sustainable cities, also things like air pollution and so although it seems like it could be quite a niche topic, I think actually intersects a lot of this. So I started to look, a few years ago, I looked at some data on bike share systems. These bike share systems, like the Santander bikes, are the ones where there's a dock and you bike out and you cycle to another part of the city and you click into a dock. And so those two events are recorded. And from that data you can start to create a picture of when people are travelling across the city, where they start and where they end. And you can go one step further, you can make an estimate of their route. We don't know the route, we don't have GPS data, this is just an estimate. And you can start to plot that and see what parts of the city are busy at different times and where the flows are occurring. And do some analysis for people to understand how that system's being used. So this is not actually London, this is Boston. I did it for this analysis for a few different cities. London was one of them, but this is from Boston. So based on about 3 months of data collapsed onto a single day. And from that you can, if you're so inclined, you can take this a bit further and start to try and generate analytical insights. So this is, I don't think I'm showing off when I say I think this is a pretty picture, but it's probably not much more than a pretty picture. Again, I think this is a nice thing to look at, and that shouldn't be sniffed at. But it's not an analysis of the system, so if you want to get a bit further, you can still use this data. You can start to analyse this and summarise that, and also create visualisations from that. So the sort of visualisation that you saw on the title slide is this. This is based around London now, and what you're seeing is connections drawn in a straight line between an origin and destination at a particular time period. So I've cut off the clock, but this is each one. This, every time you see a flash, that's sort of half a day. So you're seeing a flash of the morning, the evening, rush hour. What you see in a second, hopefully, is that these two locations. That's Waterloo, at the top that's King's Cross. You can't see that. I haven't went in landmarks in, but you see in a second. See in a second that's Hyde Park appearing. So you'll start to see a pattern where it goes morning, lunchtime, evening, going top to top. So you start to get the pattern of people moving around Hyde Park at lunchtime for leisure, when on lunch break, weekends, and then in the morning and evening the commuter flows, which are happening in big sections. And we're starting to get beyond these origin-destination flows. I'm working with some people in Madrid, PhD student Gustavo Manuelos, who has been not at this point looking at the bike share, but using a smartphone app with regular cyclists and asking them to track their journeys to work. And we can start to create visualisations from this as well. So these yellow lines are regular commuters, the general members of the public, and these blue sort of cyan lines represent cycle couriers. And again, this is data collected over a series of months, and I've collapsed it all onto one day, so this is sort of a typical day in the life, if everyone was doing all of their activity in one day, rather than spread over this period. And again, you can start to see patterns in the data, hopefully you can start to think about ways you might analyse it, and you can engage people and show them, this is the work that you've contributed, all these people that contributed to the GPS track, thank you, this is what it's telling us about Madrid. And you can do sort of some of this work we did just for visualisation purposes around the Queen Elizabeth Park. This is projected onto sort of a table which was cut out to be the shape of the Olympic Park. And we projected the data on there, and this is data taken from, I think it's from MapMindRun. It's one of these sort of fitness sites, and you have runners and walkers and cyclists who've contributed their GPS data to this site, and we've used that to create these visualizations. And again, we're sort of collapsing many days of data onto something which is like a single day, and you can start to see patterns. And this one, it's harder to see what the insights are from this, but certainly it's an interesting visualization that shows that it's being used, I guess. Okay. So I'm going to talk very briefly about mobile EEG. I will sort of skip through this, so again, if you want me to spend a bit more time at the end, I'll come back to it. So mobile EEG is a technique that is students and Maurits has done this work. And this is a way of detecting electrical activity at the surface of the scalp, and hence trying to determine people's reaction to space and place. Also can be used in some navigational decision making. Essentially, you're measuring people's physiological responses to place and space, and from that you can start to produce maps of people's reactions. So this is, I think this is an individual's excitement or arousal, sometimes called, to a route that they walked in this area. So this is Tottenham Court Road, this is Oxford Street, and you can see in this area, walking in Tottenham Court Road, they're excited, their arousal is much higher as they're dazzled by the bright lights of TCR. And then on this sort of back route, which is a little bit quieter, there's a bit of a calmer response. And this visualization is just essentially showing that emotional landscape of that individual. And it will all vary between individuals as well. So we're trying to do this piece of work now, which is going to be on Oxford Street. I can't talk about it too much because the experiments haven't been done, so the participants might find out, and it's meant to be something that they don't know about. I'm not giving too much information because it primes them for the task. But essentially, we're going to get them to walk down Oxford Street, and we're going to do a measurement of the state of the brain state, and then try and join this up with this work the Survey of London does, looking at historical history of built environments, and Oxford Street is one of their favourite. I'll talk a little bit more about the Survey of London in a second if people aren't familiar with it. So, but it's essentially an architectural history project which we're joined with this sort of more scientific, if that's the right word, picture of people's reaction to a place in the present day. Okay, so I'm going to talk. So one of the things I promised to talk about is how we understand communities as a practice, how we visualise the communities as a practice. And this is a piece of work that I carried out with an anthropologist, Charlotte Johnson. In 2014, when you see there. And she was interested in sustainability. He was researching sustainability at UCL, so specifically focused on my university. And we thought about how can we organise this knowledge in an interesting way. It's a very, very complicated set of data. And what we sort of decided was we'd sort of categorise things and then allow users to set those categories. So we've got here, let me show you the web visualization. This is the web visualization, and my laptop's a bit slow, so it's not a terribly beautiful interface. But what we've got here, so this is an individual, so you can actually see their names, more, and so on. So these are all researchers, and they said I research in sustainability. And what you can start to do with these categories on the side here, is link them to a department. That's very, very easy. So you can say, because my laptop's a bit slow, it's going to take a minute. You can link them to a department and say where these researchers clustered. So on a very basic level, you can say where is sustainability research happening at the university. Not great on this laptop because it's finding results. But you start to get the idea. Here are the clusters you're forming. And what you can do from that is then say, well, now that we know that which departments are doing what things they're looking at. So we've got a whole series of different ways you can organise knowledge here. You've got at the top a series of categories which are applied by the anthropologist Charlotte to think about how people are approaching sustainability. Is it critiquing production of knowledge? is its managing metabolic processes approach, which is sort of to do with engineering. Is it empowering inequalities, or social justice, environmental justice? Is it about managing the future, sort of more scientific? Is it understanding the past, historical approaches? And then particular resources, people look at energy, water, waste, and so on. And then different themes that come within the institutional research categorisation. And then there's other stuff as well you can do, like which area of the world are people looking at, and there's very different ways. So for example, if you wanted to just know, like, okay, so who is looking at energy? This will take a second. Which departments in the university are looking at energy? And what you'll see is not only when it gets ready, not only which people are researching energy, which departments are focusing on energy, but I guess which departments are positioning themselves as being about energy. So if you look at this is the sort of centre one here, and there seems to be a couple of winners here. So this department here has tons of researchers looking at energy. What is that? Oh, it's the Energy Institute. Okay, so that's not a huge surprise. But you can start to look at other topics and say, why is it that such and such isn't looking at this, or would there be a collaboration? And what sort of a simpler way of looking at it would be if you're a researcher and you're sort of trying to find interdisciplinary research topics. So you could say, well, I don't really care what department people are in, but who's looking at the confluence of energy and air, let's say. Oops, this works much better than Chrome. I've got some Firefox as well. So you can start to, this will set the learning sound. You can start to find researchers, start to find researchers that are on the confluence of the two. So you can see that while there's lots and lots of people looking at energy, there's only these three researchers who are looking at energy and air. So if you're thinking of some sort of collaboration or maybe a new research idea, you can identify those people who are at that intersection of two different topics that maybe hasn't been explored before. So this was sort of built as a demo, and I've sort of been interested in whether this could be applied to other areas as ways of, I feel like a lot of activities in universities are quite led by networks and understanding someone's done a piece of work like this before, or someone's done, if you're looking at public engagement, someone's done an exhibition like this before, or an event like this before, what are the challenges? I need to go and have a chat with them. Like, this is a way of starting to tease out the network, or even trying to identify yourself in, like, where do you sit in this kind of complex research landscape or public engagement landscape. So I did do some work for the UCL Public Engagement Unit to do something similar, but it's sort of an intermediate stage. I don't have a kind of final version to share, I'm afraid. So that's the kind of one of the approaches of taking a very sort of networky approach to understanding essentially what are social networks, but now you've got all of these sort of tertiary objects. They could be different themes, they could be co-publications or different projects people worked on, and starting to understand and help people to understand whether they can fit into this landscape. This is an early demo that I did, which is offline. It's a little bit So that's the sort of mapping community landscapes aspect, and I'm hoping to do some work on that around sharing economy on this project I'm working on in Hackney Wick, but at the moment the data collection is very, very early, so I don't have too much to say about it. But I'm happy to, again, talk about that, and if people are interested in sharing economies, then I can talk about that a little bit as well. Okay, so here's a sort of project which is not to do really with research in the same way. It's a visualization technique that I've been playing around with a little bit, and something that I think could be an interesting tool for engagement. And it's called Pixel Spec. Let me show you this movie, and I'll talk through what's going on as I show it to you. This is a device for painting with light. Here we go. And this is created in real in situ using long exposure photography. So this is what happens. On the left you can see what the eye sees, on the right you can see what the long exposure photograph produces. You've got a stick, which is about the size of me, with a series of pixels, LEDs, and it lights up and it creates an image row by column by column. And this is, so we've done some work around this, just some initial kind of technology demonstrations really. This is commercially available, by the way. We didn't invent this, we're just thinking about fun ways to use it. So we did some stuff with Richard Burton, this was all flat in Hampstead, and some artistic works near to the blue plaques with the artists who created them. This is a bit of stuff that we did in East London, in the Olympic Park. So that's our logo. There's a Again, you can see you get effects that you can't get just by photoshopping in. You get a sense that it's really embedded in the space, which I think is quite fun and exciting. So a historical image of the location a little bit north of the Olympic site, actually not quite where it was taken. That is the Jet sewer, which is directly underneath where that photo was taken, the Greenway. And that's an image which is on a building, I think, down in Stratford, so just sort of somewhere around here around the corner. I actually haven't seen the original, the Yardley company symbol. And then we did some Olympic people because we were in the Olympic Park, and it seemed a bit weird not to do that. Yeah. So this is sort of a fairly early days. We sort of did this over the summer. I'm interested in this as a tool for kind of storytelling, engagement. Can we take this out on the street, show people images which relate to data about the city, relate to historical figures or locations on where we're taking them. And I've done a little bit of stuff with schools. So this is a big schools talk I did over sort of just before Christmas. Was talking to them about data visualization, showed them this, had them draw out the booth map of the local area. This is the IOE just around the corner. You can see them getting, well, they don't look that excited. They were quite excited when they it's slightly less exciting showing the picture of that, but if you're in the room and you see it happen, it's quite fun. But it's quite a fun and engaging tool. And this is a map of air pollution from, I think, about 2003. So you can show data, you can show historic images, you can show. I'm really interested in the idea of sort of fiction and having sort of fictional figures occurring. We've done bits of sort of Lovecraft and things in the UCL quad, but I haven't got those images as well. So that's a sort of a different visualization technique. Something's a bit more hands-on, I guess, because it's quite physical, and it's meant to be a bit more interactive and tactile. So I wanted to mention a project that I'm working on at the moment, which only started 6 weeks ago, so very, very early results of this, but I wanted to mention it because I thought it would be of interest, and it's this project we're doing with the Survey of London in Whitechapel. So the Survey of London I mentioned before, they are sort of, I don't know if they'd like it to describe them as itinerant historians, because that's not quite true, but they sort of move from area to area in London, and they focus on a particular area, and they do a really, really exhaustive history of built environments in that area. And as I said, they're normally doing a couple of different areas overlapping at any one time, and as I said at the moment, they're working on Oxford Street, but also Whitechapel. And we got the HSC grant to take their work beyond the normal dissemination tool, which is a book, a very beautiful set of volumes, and into a web-based system where people can visit this website, they can interact with it, they can get information about the locations on a sort of building by building basis or street by street basis, depending on our level of detail. They can get text from the scholarly resources, they can get images, but also we want to involve people in the community to generate their own stories, their own information, images, audio, video, you name it, anything that adds to the sort of this rich narrative and potentially provides differing or complementary histories to the ones that the survey is providing. And this is, Duncan, who's actually carrying out this work, has only been in place for 6 weeks, so this is a really impressive start in terms of doing that. But you can see this is probably with a slightly jazzy base map. That's kind of what it might look like. You click on a building and you get some information that's the historic record, and you have the ability to dig in and read more or contribute your own material. We're very excited about that. So the first year is mostly going to be setting up this framework, but then there's another 2 years of the project where we're going to be continuing to gather material and running events to help to ingest stuff into this project. You can sort of roughly see the boundary of this area where where the old Whitechapel parish boundary. Okay, so that's sort of just a really quick run through some of the projects that I'm working on. And sorry if that was very, very quick, and hopefully you can pick out stuff that's interesting in that. I'm happy to discuss it a bit more. So I'll talk a little bit about if you're interested in visualization as something you want to do yourself, as you see as a way into it, you'd like to way into it. I can give you some suggestions on that, and I'll talk a little bit about podcasting. And I'll stop. So, essentially, this is the short version. If you're interested in visualization, you want to learn a bit more. In terms of mapping, there are some really good free tools available. Some you have to sign up for, but they are dead easy to use. it's getting easier and easier. I mean, in fact, I didn't even put Google Maps on there. Google Fusion tables, that's a really good way to get data online. Timeline and CartoDB, Timeline is the offline software, the online software is called Mapbox. Mapbox and CartoDB are really, really powerful web cartography programs. I can show you what they look like if you like me to. And QGIS is a free open source fully featured GIS. So that's a little bit more complex, but if you want to get into sort of slightly more sophisticated mapping or analysis, it has a relatively gentle learning curve compared to some of the others, and it's free and you don't need a license to use it. And then there's, for other kinds of visualizations, I haven't talked about all the variety of visualizations you could do, but raw data, which is an online visualization platform by Density Design, has quite a lot of really interesting ones I think are really interesting. Maybe we'll get you started. And then when you get, I've listed as more involved options, not because I'm sort of advocating that you go out and learn Python or R, but if you're already using those languages for some reason, for some other purpose, there are ways you can start to create some quite sophisticated and interesting visualizations. So Python's got a bunch of libraries, R's got a bunch of libraries, processing has got some, well, processing is a little bit more low level, but you can produce some very, very beautiful stuff, I think. For web stuff, online stuff, D3 is, I would say, probably the go-to tool, and that's a JavaScript library. So if you're working with any of those already and you think, well, I could just sort of acquire a bit of extra knowledge and create these visualizations, they're worth looking into. There's a bunch of sort of visualization that I've just put up here to give examples of stuff you can do processing, things you can do. Okay, things you can do with D3. Things you can do with D3, so that's all web enabled. Things you can do in R, very nice for mapping, very nice for sort of beautiful looking graphs. GIS software like CartoDB, Python for all sorts of different plotting tools. Okay, so I'll talk very quickly then about academic podcasting and I'll end with that. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I've been working on a podcast called the Global Lab for a few years, and I'm interested, if other people are interested in podcasting, I'm increasingly thinking, you know, as a podcast we should be linking up with other people who are doing it or who are interested in starting. So this is a sort of, I know you had a talk last year, I think, on academic podcasting, so if that inspired you to start, then, you know, that'd be great to link up, and if you've just got questions on that, to help. So rather than give a general primer of what a podcast is and how you set one up and all the technology, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the podcast that I do and the way that it works, and hopefully that's a helpful starting point for discussion if people want to talk about that. So we do a podcast called The Global Lab. It's been around since 2011, and it's a monthly show. We do it every month apart from Christmas and Easter, and maybe a month over the summer, because it's too difficult to get academics. And it's a show about cities, global complexity, and the impact of technology on people's lives. This is a really broad topic, I think so anyway. It doesn't have to tick all of those boxes, but it has to sort of meet at least one of those requirements for it to be a global show, I guess. And global complexity is really a way of saying mathematical approaches to the world. So each month we can do 3 interviews and it's around a theme. So an example would be we did the first theme show we did was October 2014. We did City of Terror. This happened to be all to be UCL people, but that's not representative. Quite often we have a lot of people outside UCL and outside academia. So if you're interested in being a guest, then again you're very welcome. City of Terror, where we had James Neal, who was talking about H.P. Lovecraft and cities. That's pretty terrifying. Panos, my PhD student, was talking about sensing people's reactions to urban environments, that EEG work I was showing you. So there's a bit of a tentative link into terror there, but I don't think people were actually terrified of the Tottenham Road, but they were a little bit disconcerted at least. And Peter Bodan, who was an RA cast on the mathematics of terrorism, building mathematical models of terror attacks. So there's 3 themes coming at the terror from a very different way: very literary, very scientific, very mathematical modelling. I try and maintain that sort of that kind of balance. But this is unrepresentative in that we've got 3 men, which is something we try to avoid. but generally the gender balance is a bit better than this one, so maybe I'll put those on. Okay, so basically the way that we now sort of try and work our shows out is this: we've got aims for the whole endeavour, topics we want to cover, and then the theme that we'll get. And so the aims are we're creating accessible content and to listen to. It's enjoyable. It's not aimed at an academic audience. And we're trying to get early career people to participate and create content. So to participate in interviews, to carry out the interviews, to edit and produce the podcast. And it's not exclusively early career people who are lecturers and more senior, but it's essentially also to act as a platform for people who don't get the opportunity to appear on radio for get a little bit of a chance to have some practice and experience in broadcasting, or at least the format of a broadcast interview. And the topics I talked about, and then the theme. So this little area here is where these three things intersect, and that's where we find our shows, basically. In terms of the practicalities, Stephen Gray and I, who's in the Casa, put this together in 2011, got a little bit of money from Beacon Bursary Fund, UCL Public Engagement Fund, to buy some equipment and some microphones. And that the Zoom H4n is a portable recorder, and that means we can go and do interviews at people's offices and locations, or we can just do it in an office in Casa and the device hooks up some microphones, and we can do it that way if we want to as well. I've got some flexibility. So I guess I'm sort of showing that if you're interested in podcasting, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Having a good idea of what you want it to be is helpful. Something we don't have a good idea of, like having a specific audience in mind. If you've got a specific audience in mind, that's even better. Like a spatial community or a group of people who are interested in a particular topic, that would be brilliant, and you can focus on them. But essentially it's not too hard. If people want to talk about that and want to learn something to give it. Here's some resources. I presume we can share the slides around afterwards. So this is actually full disclosure laptop blog post written by my wife. I think it's a very good blog post. And then there's a couple that I've written, and here's some other ones. And there's a whole bunch of others, but those are probably quite good starting points. And if you're interested in podcasting, there's a very good support group on Facebook where people get together and moan about their audio quality, big rubbish, and getting frustrated with technology and things like that. So that's quite fun. Right, I'm going to stop there and take questions and discussion. And thank you.